talking about Mr. Hynek, and she showed me a picture, and it was basically of a side of a craft that she'd captured in one of these bursts, and that the face, you could see this face and this being, and she had told me that Mr. Hynek had used that as the tall being in Close Encounters.
Interesting.
So I was like, amazing, because that's one of my favorite movies, and all these things are flooding into me. But yeah, Dorothy had some amazing things that she was able to capture. Another thing, here's something very interesting, because I just remembered what you were saying earlier, is Dorothy one time, one of the photos she showed me, it was a photo, and I looked at it, I go, this one's really different from the others. And she's like, yeah, this is like a landscape. And she said, yes, it's a picture I took in Richmond. And I said, Richmond? I said, off your balcony, it doesn't look anything like that. And she said that the light beings were able to pull her through into the future, and the image came onto the film, and that the image was actually an underwater photograph, and it was in Richmond, BC, which if you don't know, is actually about a foot under or a few feet under water. It has a big dike around it. So this was something that they were trying to show Dorothy in the future, and this was probably in the 80s. The early 80s that picture was taken.
Well, Robert.
So I was amazed when she gave me that explanation. I was like, I'm trying to figure out my world, and she's like telling me unbelievable things like that. But she had photographs of it, and she went through the same thing as me in the beginning of like, what is going on? I just want to have this done away with. I don't really want to deal with this. But then she, I think she had a said a wonderful thing one time. I think one of her grandchildren came to her and said, Nana, I believe you, because really a lot, you feel like you're not so much going crazy, but it really tests your ability to deal with reality. You know what I mean? Because your reality is expanding dramatically, and you've got to try to fit this stuff in. And is it real, or and especially when you're actually having these things happen to you, yourself too. So it's an amazing thing to be able, over years. It does take a while, but over years to actually come up with some sort of like idea and to come up with a comfort level and be able to, function and to feel comfortable and to actually, it's been very valuable. There's a lot of very valuable information you learn for later in life, like, things to do with your health, things to do with finances, things to do so that you don't get caught up in a lot of this conspiracies and these traps and these, I don't know.
But that's what they want you to do, is get trapped.
Depopulation plans or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
But one thing you just said, it kind of hit home when you said, here she went in the future, and then in the picture that it was showed, the area underwater. What's going on right now with Antarctica? Okay, the sea levels are rising.
Exactly.
Okay, so
exactly.
And 20 years ago, people would, let's be honest, 20 years ago, all the scientists were laughing off global warming. Except a few people were saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. And, they were made a fool of, and made fun of. And guess what? It's happening. Everything that was predicted is happening, but it's happening way faster than whatever was predicted. That's the scary part. So whatever she captured in her image is a good warning that we should have took attention to back even when she, first brought that out.
Yeah, no, it was basically a seabed you were looking at, and it was all water, and it was kind of a little blurry, but you could definitely see that it was some kind of landscape, but it was like odd. But then when she said she was drawn into the picture and that it was underwater, I was like, wow, that's unbelievable.
Well,
yeah, but she had all
scary.
kinds of things. There's another one. Here's another cool little, and I'm just using these because it gives Dorothy credibility. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us, but it gives her credibility with her images and things. She was able through, one of the things that happens with these pictures is it's you kind of like raise your vibration, or I explained one time in a talk where I tried to get into a very joyful state, and Dorothy was talking about sort of like asking them to show her something beautiful, or going out with your camera. And when I took these pictures in early, I would sometimes not, like, I'm not taking pictures of anything. I'm just holding the camera in front of me and just taking one after another. And in one series, I got about a dozen out of 36, and they were like nice slides, so it comes out as a nice series. But Dorothy, one time, she talked about her microwave, and that there was something wrong with it, and she was seeing energy coming out of it. And I asked Graham about it too, and he's like, yes, she's talked to him about it. And it was the early days of microwaves. This is like the late 70s, early 80s or something, and I guess maybe 82, maybe it could have been. And it was a Canadian company. Back in those days, appliances were designed and built in Canada and or in the United States. And her particular early microwave was made in Canada. And Graham, through another friend, was able to have the engineer come over, and without saying who he was or anything like that, he went to Dorothy's house with Graham, and they looked at they talked to her and everything, and she explained what she was seeing in the microwave and what was coming out the door and out the side of the microwave. And she was seeing like this, kind of a sparkly light, kind of trails coming out. And he said to Graham that that's exactly what you would see if it was coming out, because that's where the gun is, and that's where we engineered it, and that's how we put it together, so that she's actually seeing leaking. And so she was able to see things that technically we should be able to see. Our eye spectrum doesn't go that wide from a scientific point of view, but people are able to see things. It's like from in the old days of like a shamanic point of view, people had almost an expanded vision with their consciousness.
I don't know. I think we lost that, living in the cities and stuff like that, and not have to go out and fend for ourselves and all this stuff. I think, we're gaining stuff, abilities, but I think at the same time we're gaining, some of these weird abilities. I think we're losing a lot of abilities we just don't use anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, technology takes over a lot of those abilities. Like when we have, cell phones or tablets and things like that. Like one thing, we're of a similar age, and, I remember a time at the beginning of computers and stuff, and I remember like the first computer I ever got introduced to was, I don't know why, but my high school kind of held on to like their last computer before they got into like real high technology. And we literally had a big Wang computer with punch cards and everything in like the early 80s in high school. And it was just like this idea that, I don't know, there's like technology can sometimes be a bit of a trap, I think, where we have abilities, that we can enhance, or we can, give away in the name of convenience. I've even been a bit of an analog person. I like to, even though I'm an industrial designer and I've had exposure to, CNCs and computers and CAD software and rendering and modeling software, I still prefer to work with a pen, the pencil, modeling things by hand, building things by hand, listening to, records, that kind of thing. So I'm not saying it's like an anti-technology, but I think we have to be very careful with technology having the answers. I mean, we've had iPads long enough now that we've actually learned that they can be a problem. It's not like this great answer to, oh, look, we'll be able to have access to everything. It's great and everything. Well, no, you don't want to be staring at those all day. It can take away your ability to do things. And so people, end up where they actually need this technology. They're reliant on it. And
that's what, Robert, that's what scares me. Young people. I'm going to go back. I remember, now I'm only going back because I'm 67, but my dad was into electronics. I mean, that's all he did in his life. And, we were one of the first people in our neighborhood to get a TV. I remember this TV with like a 4 or 5 inch screen. It was round. And all the neighbors would come to our house and they would watch TV. Before that, we had a real nice old, I don't even know the name of the old radio. And we used to listen, when I was a little kid, we used to listen to radio a lot before we got our TV. Again, we would have neighbors come over listening to, the various shows on the weekend. We'd sit around and what I'm trying to say is, back in those days, before TV, you actually had to use your brain. So if they were, if it was like a detective show or a space show or whatever it was, right? You had to close your eyes, and then you heard the footsteps. Then actually in your mind, you saw the guy going up the stairs. You heard the creaking door open. You saw the guy, walking into the room. You had to use your imagination. That is what's lacking nowadays because, you turn on the TV, you turn on your computer, it's all either automated or it's whatever, but you don't have your imagination of your brain functioning and putting in all the elements that you had to before. And that's where I think we are suffering. I think young people are suffering. Our whole world is suffering because it's all based now on technology. Take away the computers from people right now. Take away their calculators. Take away their cell phones. Please. What would happen to society real fast, even if they lost their cell phones and computers for a month or a year?
Yeah. Yeah, I did it with a cell phone for a while, where I didn't have one for a number of years, and you can survive, you can get around it, you change your life, use other people's phones sometimes, but it's not something. It's like if it's not there, you kind of don't. It's like if you don't know about the technology, you don't sort of miss it, kind of thing. It's
I don't know. I'm going to tell you this. Yeah. It was scary. Yesterday, I was waiting in to go in and have my oral surgery done. Okay, there was about 12, 15 people in the waiting room. And I'm talking probably from the ages 30 to probably in their 70s or even older. I had to wait there for about 45 minutes. And you know what I saw? Virtually everybody in that room, including the little old lady, right? Open up her purse, take out their cell phone. Go on there, I hate to say it, on the Facebook, because I was glancing at these people, and they're going through like Facebook like crazy the whole time they were waiting. And that is so obsessed with technology, it just makes me want to go to the bathroom and barf.
Yeah. Well, the technology itself, it's even being admitted to, like with Facebook and that, is that the algorithms and certain things are playing upon emotional things on a psychological level. It's almost like a psychological drug that they can create electronically that we crave, and we have to have that. Oh, look, I got a like, or oh, look, my phone beeped, I have to get it. And these are things that are creating into it. Like the one thing that's funny with Facebook is that the day that Facebook was created was the same day that DARPA dropped a very similar program. So this idea that, this freckle-faced kid from Harvard suddenly came up with all this stuff, it's like, no, it's kind of more like he's kind of like the role model that we want that everybody to think, where actually it's very sophisticated stuff that comes from somewhere else.
Well, it's all brain. I hate to say it. Facebook, I'm going to be honest with you. I was a total addict on Facebook. I was. But doing the show, I get thousands of emails a day. I'm not joking. That's bad enough to have to. And then if I stay on Facebook, all of a sudden I get all these messages from people all day long sending me stuff I don't even care about. And it got to a point, honestly, I would go to bed at night and I would I make sure my phone was charged. Okay. And I would put it on the headboard. And my wife was about ready to divorce me. About every 10 minutes, it would go ding. I have it. I'd grab my phone.
Reach over.
And it would wake her up from the light of the phone, even if I turned it down. And here I start chatting with people, and then I put the phone down. 10 minutes later, ding, and that went on. And finally, my wife said, "Hey, either you do something or you find another spot to sleep. That's how obsessed people are on it. And also, it